All right. I think we're live. Thanks for joining. How's it going? Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Before I introduce my special guest, I just want to do something that I've seen Brian over at BellTube do, and that is go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment if you are watching this on replay. It kind of helps figure out if this is a good time for everybody, if there's people that want to watch this but can't. Let me know what works for you. If you're catching this on the replay, let me know in the comments. And then if you're here watching live, go ahead and leave some questions for us, and we'll do our best to tackle them as they arise. But without further ado, I want to introduce my special guest. It's been a long time coming, a good friend on BookTube, someone I've followed for a long time and take a lot of inspiration from. And that is the Gyminator, Jimmy, in other words, Jim Jam, Jimothy, Jimboree, Gymnasium, Jim. Basically, that's all I got. Welcome, Jimmy. Finally, it's about time.
The Gyminator's a new one. I haven't had that. Now, I am disappointed in you for not calling me Himothy. I feel like that is, or Jimothy even would have been acceptable. I think that those are two. That's where I would have went with the intro. Okay. I'm going to suggest people don't leave comments. I think that you should just
pretend like. Do me a favor. Pretend like you're not here. Let Jimmy and I talk, and then whatever.
Yeah, happens. Honestly, kind of rude of all you to just like listen in on a private conversation like that. A bit presumptuous, if you will. Not sure how I feel about it. No, I'm happy to be here, man. I'm glad you're back.
Cool. Thanks, man.
I'm surprised to see you come back, but more surprised to see you post more than like 2 times. Not because of you, but this is a common trend in YouTube. Is that a lot of people will take a break, or they'll step away or whatever, and they come back, however long, year, 6 months, whatever it is, and they're like, "I'm back. I went about some things, the wrong way, and now I want to come back and just have some fun." And then usually they post 100%. Like 2 videos, like "Where have I been?" TBR, and then you don't hear from them. Yeah, you never hear from them.
Maybe a wrap up 2 months down the road, late. Yeah,
maybe. Which is fine because I've never really understood the obsession with trying to figure out why people leave YouTube because. It's very like people grow, they change, they drop hobbies, they pick up new ones. I know you have a ton of hobbies and you context switch constantly. So for me, it's almost the exception to continue on and to be consistent with it. But I'm glad you're back, dude. I'm glad you're posting. You seem like you're having fun. And
man,
no-brainer to come on here when you invited me.
I appreciate it. What's up, guys? How's it going? Thanks for being here. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Honestly, yeah, it's I don't know how you do it. I guess we'll talk about it a little bit. You've probably talked about this on other live streams, but frankly I don't know how you keep up. I don't know how, because I know that you're busy. You have a lot of hobbies as well. You work, you're I think a husband, right? You're married.
Yeah, some days.
And so it's a fully Mrs. Nuts, right? She's Mrs. Nuts. And so sometimes I don't know how you do it. You don't have a little Atticus like Alan does, so that helps. Neither do I, but still, man, it's been. How long have you been doing BookTube, dude? Like, it's been a minute. 2019, 2020.
Yeah, it'll be 5 years in January. So, it's been a while.
Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah. Why did you do this? Like, what possessed you to just
an ego? I think I'm a bit vain. I like to entertain. I like to think that I can maybe possibly connect with people in a way. So I think all those things. Boredom was definitely a big factor because like once you've done like wrestling and performed like life is very mundane, still is to me. And just kind of grasping at anything that I could do. And I find a value in YouTube centered around books. Like I find that there's a service of it almost, and I kind of wanted to provide that, I guess, and also documenting my journey through reading and getting back into it. That's one thing I always disagree. I see people say that you need a certain acumen or a number of books or whatever to start a channel to talk about books and to do reviews and stuff, and I just simply do not agree. I started out and I was pretty dumb and not very well read. And
really, that never came across, even in your old stuff. I hard disagree, but we'll take that as humility. But I hard disagree. But
even by the numbers, though, I really wasn't that well read. I may have been able to articulate things in a way that maybe connected with people, but for me, it was more just about like wanting to document the journey through it.
Yeah.
And really, ultimately, the beginning of it was just trying to find the next A Song of Ice and Fire, which is an
Yeah.
utter failure of a quest, because for me, there is nothing quite like it. I have found other
Yep.
things I love, but in different ways. So I think
Yeah.
that was really it. And I don't know. I'm one of these weird people that really likes to be left alone. And sometimes I feel really overexposed being on YouTube. And it's something I struggle with. But at the same time, there's something inside of me that cannot help but to want to be a part of something bigger than me. And that is like an internal struggle that I'll always have, of wanting to be seen, but also not wanting to be seen all at once. It's very conflicting.
Is that introvert extrovert thing people talk about? I feel like I'm straddling the line. Like my wife said, like when I go out, like I'm on, you know, I love to talk. I feel like I can be a good conversationalist. I like people for the most part, but I appreciate my alone time. You know, I'm very much a homebody, and I do have that social battery that I feel like gets drained over time, right? And I guess we're all that way, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
We must
Yeah. I
be.
mean, we all have a
So,
battery, right? Like the battery,
yeah.
you only have so much juice in you. And there are times
Yeah.
where I stretch that, and it's
Yep.
always my own fault. It's never anyone else's, you know. So today, I'm obviously doing this stream, which is wonderful. Last night I did Chatting with Nuts. Later today, I'll be filming Lost in Roshar with my buddy Christian. And then tomorrow, I'm actually meeting up with someone from BookTube.
Sweet.
Can
you disclose it? Okay, don't right now.
I actually don't know.
It'll be a surprise.
Yeah, it'll be a surprise. So I'm meeting up with someone tomorrow, which is great. Like, these are all
Awesome.
good things. But you know, I know tomorrow night I'm going to be sitting on the couch and being like, I don't want to speak for the next 3 days. You know, and I just kind of want to melt into the background.
Yeah,
so
man.
It's one of those things of just being able to find energy to do it. The key to doing it for a long period of time has been doing stuff, one, that I enjoy first and foremost, and having a pretty clear goal of like who I am and what I want to do, and not wrestling a lot with like, what does YouTube want me to do? What does success look like comparatively to everyone else? I don't really compare myself to others. I really don't care.
That's a rabbit hole you can go down, is like, what are the videos that I should be making? What are the reviews I should be making? Who should I be target instead? And then you get away from what the reason why you did this in the first place. That's a very easy trap to fall into.
Yeah, William Regal, one time when I was at one of my WWE tryouts, William Regal said something, and it just kind of changed the way I look at things. And I didn't realize how much it had like affected me until he said this. But we essentially, one of the guys who ended up being Elias on WWE, for anyone who watches, that was my boy. He was known as Logan Shulo. I won't say his real name online, but so Logan, or Elias, whatever, he had gotten an opportunity, and he was going to be wrestling Dean Ambrose that night in the dark match. And William Regal just comes over to the rest of us, and he's like, "Hey guys, you probably feel really bad right now because you didn't get the opportunity, but I just want you to know that his opportunity is not your opportunity. And every second you think and compare yourself to him is a second you could have been using to get better at whatever you do." And I was like,
wow, profound.
Yeah, it was a very profound moment. And luckily, I didn't really have any resentment. Wrestling is a very ugly, jealous business. But I always said if I didn't make it, I always wanted him to make it, because he's genuinely one of the greatest guys I've ever met in my life. And, that changed the way I kind of looked at life in general. It wasn't just in the business that I was in. But I feel like it's impossible not to compare yourself at times. But you're going to rob yourself of a lot of growth that way, and looking at what you can do, because each person brings something unique to the table. It's just about finding that and focusing on it, and not spending that limited juice or energy on other things. You just got to be the best for where you're at.
Well said. Actually, you talked a bit about how much you have on the go right now, a couple videos, another live stream, whatever.
Yeah.
I remember hearing on a video of yours back in the day that you try, and I don't know if this is still a goal, but you try and read about 100 pages a day. Is that still your thing, or does that shift?
I have slowed down quite a bit.
Okay.
And part of that was because I was reading multiple books at once, which, just like in the last month, I've decided to just focus on one book as much as I can. Sometimes I might have an audiobook going.
Right.
But simply, I just feel as if I don't feel like I need to read 100 pages a day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Back when that was happening, I really had this urge and this fire underneath me to get through a lot of these bigger series like Malaz and Realm of the Otherlings, Dark Tower, all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And it was fun, dude. I mean, I felt like I was unlocking, like in an RPG, like I was unlocking achievements as I read these books. And
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, those books I did feel were making massive differences in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And now that certainly does happen. There are days where I'll read 200 pages. That happens. It's not
Right.
infrequent, but
Right.
it's a lot more up and down. It's more about just reading the book at whatever pace it demands of me. Some books I can't read 100 pages a day, and then what am I supposed to do? Get mad at the book for being what it is? That's not fair, right? Like
I'm starting to realize that some books just you can't or shouldn't read at the same pace as another. It just doesn't work as well, for sure.
Yeah. There's just books that you can't do that. You know, there are books that I've read 10 pages at a day, and people in my Discord, it's almost like a joke. It's like, oh yeah, you're gonna read that one 10 pages a day too, because I kept starting books, and I'll be like, this one 10, this one 10. But there just are books that demand to be read in a different way, and I am willing and have the patience to morph to that. So I just don't want to ever put every experience into one box or structure. So I've kind of backed off that quite a bit. I don't seek productivity in what I do anymore. I don't feel the need to get something out just to get it out. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, I just want. I'm a reader first and foremost, and a YouTuber second. And I'm sharing that first thing, which is me loving reading and how I do it. And sometimes I like grandma books, sometimes I like hot girl books, sometimes I like boring books, but I always want to represent my authentic experience. And part of that is taking the book as it comes.
So you do, that's very interesting, because you do have a really varied taste, I think. Does that extend, this is a two-part question, I want to get back to that, but just curious, as I say that, does that extend to other things like music and like, do you listen to a bit of everything? Do you watch a bit of everything?
Yeah, I would say
you read everything, Jimmy. You read like all over the place.
Well, I'm interested about people a lot of the times, and what makes people tick. And I think that comes from traveling in my early 20s. I think that helped me out tremendously. Also getting to go to other countries when I was younger, like Nicaragua. I spent like collectively about a month there, I would say, over time. And like, you know, totally different walks of life, type of people. So I've always been obsessed with how other people see the world. And one of the big things is like what makes people happy where they are and stuff. So there's an affinity to me of like collecting these experiences of other walks of life and different POVs and different authors and everything else. So in reading, it comes a lot more natural. I don't watch a lot of TV, so I don't take a lot of risks on TV. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I think reading's that for a lot of people because it's a huge time investment, but I just simply don't feel as engaged. Video games, I tend to take a couple risks on, but like anymore, I'm starting to also dial back into the old man thing where I just play my games I like and that's it, you know. But I just try not to be afraid of new things and change. I don't know if everything else in my life is as varied as my reading is, but I'd like to think that it comes from seeking out other perspectives and other people. I don't like make goals like I'm going to read this many of this, you know, person's type this year or anything like that. It just kind of naturally happens. And I'm happy for that.
So that sounds like a very intrinsic thing. Does that like, are you not influenced by BookTube at all to go outside your comfort zone or try, like, obviously we get recommendations and we appreciate that stuff. And we do get some of our, you know, stuff from BookTube, but you don't feel the pressure in other, like you're going to read what you like. And if that's varied in some way, BookTube has nothing to do with that. You would have read that anyway. Right.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it would be foolish of me to say that I'm not influenced by the things around me. I was talking to Toasty Towns last night on Chatting with Nuts, and he was saying that like he had no plans of reading Poppy War. He didn't even know what Poppy War was. And then he saw two of his friends reading on Goodreads at the same time. He was like, I want some of that. And then he just started reading it, and he doesn't even like it, you know, but he was like, yo, FOMO. And I'm like, yeah, I totally understand.
Man, I get FOMO bad. Yeah.
I think FOMO is a good thing, at least when it comes to books. Maybe not like in financial advice, but I definitely think that it's good when it comes to books because it shows that you're trying to seek community and to discuss these things. And what better way than to join a crowd? I don't think you should take on groupthink and adopt the opinions of everyone else. That's the downside of FOMO and kind of finding an insular group or whatever. But for me, I definitely get recommendations from BookTube, less so than I used to. But for me, my recommendations come from things that are more out of my wheelhouse. So, for instance, Better Than Food, very popular BookTube channel, does a lot of lit fic, and he happens to be kind of a pessimistic defeatist like myself. So I really like a lot of the lit fic that he bubbles up. Not everyone's been a hit, but I found out so many authors from his channel, and then finding other people like it. So when it comes to like classics and stuff, you know, I will actually seek out other booktubers that aren't really in my sphere. And the thing that I really like about litfic / classics, and this is something, I'm going to be a hypocrite for a second.
I love it.
They don't care too much about spoilers because they believe that the merit of the book will last through whatever. Now, they are still careful. I don't think that they're just dumping the entire plot on you every twist and turn, but they are not afraid to tell you about what the book's about throughout the book. And the reason why I'm a hypocrite is because I am very sensitive to spoilers, especially in series, because I need those unveils. Like, I've had a lot of books ruined for me because of spoilers.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do wish, as someone who makes videos about books, that more people were willing to engage with spoiler content. One of the most fascinating people on the platform is Quinn's Ideas, because this man is just making amazing videos with a tremendous voiceover, and he's just spoiling every sci-fi book that anyone would ever want to read. And he gets 800,000 views. And I'm sure a lot of people. I mean, I'm maybe I might be stretching.
I always thought
very successful.
I always thought spoiler content was like the minimally watched. You know what I mean? Because people avoid it. And okay, you seek that out if you want reassurance of your own views on whatever, or maybe like the kinds of videos I like is maybe like, you know, the ending of X, you know, explained, right? And like a deep dive into maybe this scene or what this metaphor might mean, that kind of stuff. But in terms of like a spoilery kind of review, like people don't really like that. I found.
I think if you present it in a way, there's a lot of people that would really enjoy seeing it kind of played out in this way, and still leaving up to, like, there's still the journey before destination, as we all say. But I think that this is super important. So for instance, I'm just looking like Ultimate Guide to Three Body Problem, 803,000 views. I guarantee you he spoils the series in that. Like, he is not adverse to telling you what it's about, what's happening. This is a great example, actually. And
that kind of book, you need to understand what the hell's going on. Some people will seek that out, right? Like, what? Yeah.
That is fair. So for instance, he has The Sparrow, which is, you know, a very respected sci-fi. It's not amazingly popular. The Sparrow, The Secret of whatever, Rakat or something. So he's literally just digging into one piece of the book. It's a 34-minute video. 6 months ago, has 300,000 views for a relatively unpopular sci-fi. But I know it's popular in the genre, but like,
sure.
You'd be
I've never heard of it, for example, right? Like,
and you're a reader, right? I'm trying to protect myself from the Sparrow fans about to come and be like, it's actually a prominent work in the genre. I know.
Oh, I bet. We just haven't come across it, and you'd expect that we would have at least heard of it, right? If it was in the sphere. Yeah.
Right.
So it has a niche audience.
It would be like me doing a review of Curse of Chalion by Lois McMaster Bujold and getting 300,000 views. People would be like, what the fuck?
Well,
like,
I don't know.
How did this happen?
Totally.
So, I kind of like that about other parts of BookTube, and I'm way less spoiler adverse to literary fiction and classics, especially classics, because sometimes I feel stupid reading them, and I need a little bit of context, actually. So
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I do still get recommendations. It just seems to be a little bit more from things outside of my wheelhouse. And I'm still finding, by the way, like, I'm still finding a lot of stuff in sci-fi and fantasy that I had not heard of. There are things out there, you know. I think that there are reasons why things sometimes get left in the past. For one reason or another, whether it be publication issues or even content within the books themselves. But the journey's not over for me in fantasy at all. It's just that there's a lot more to discover outside of my wheelhouse. So that's why I kind of seek out those recommendations from other channels.
Okay. Well, what about Heidi's question? Have you tried Daughter of the Empire? Is that that's not Janny Wirtz, is it? No.
It's Janny Wirtz and Raymond Feist.
That's right.
It's a trilogy. I actually own it. I had a viewer actually send me 3 of the UK copies, which was really cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I do plan on reading it. I actually was going to read it last year, but instead I read Curse of the Mistwraith, and I was like, okay, well, I want to get to more authors, so like that'll be the Janny Wirtz book for this year. Because I mean, this might sound rude, but I'd be reading Daughter of the Empire for Janny, not so much Raymond.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
not that I hate Raymond Feist or anything, but like I'm more interested in Janny Wertz's work
Totally.
than his probably overall. His main character in the Magicians trilogy is named Pug, and I'm just like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Look, it's not often that a name or a whatever puts me off, but every now and then, every now I was reading, I read City on Fire, which is book 1 of a trilogy called the Danny Ryan trilogy, and it's just like an 80s mafia crime thriller by Don Winslow. And I did a wrap up and I just mentioned it, and I ended up saying like he's got an affinity for P names. There was like a Pam and a Polly and a Pete and a Pasco and a Pascal I'm just like, dude, like, you know, it's these funny things that every now and then pull you out of it, right? It's whatever. But do you get the Game of Thrones comparisons with Daughter of the Empire? Have you heard that before?
I have heard that before, yeah? But I am always suspect.
Searching.
About it,
oh, okay.
Theo, so many people come to me and they're like, you didn't like Pillars of the Earth, it's just like Game of Thrones. And I'm like, oh man.
I disagree.
Like,
yeah.
I understand the comparison, but like at the same time, not at all. Like, because like A Song of Ice and Fire encapsulates so much and so many things, so many archetypes and so many themes that for any one thing to tackle all of those things, it's going to be a tall task anyways. And also here's the bigger thing. There are different things that people enjoy about A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I feel as if depending on what you latch onto in that very vast series, other series could feel very reminiscent of it to you, or you could enjoy it. Oh, this is just like this. For instance, First Law. First Law is a very close psychic distance to the characters that are deeply flawed and conflicted with the world around them and having to make these decisions that are very morally gray. So if you latched onto that in A Song of Ice and Fire, and that's what you liked about it, then First Law, just like Game of Thrones, right? But what if you went in and you actually were really enjoying the flip of like the hero's journey, and you were enjoying like a Samwell Tarly, who's an unlikely hero, or Bran, someone who has lost the ability to use his legs, and that he's on this amazing journey up north to the most dangerous part of the world from what they can tell. Like, who knows?
Totally different.
You know, it could be the female characters. It could be the politics of it all, which is where I think the Daughter of the Empire kind of enters in the court politics. So it's just a wide range. So I always think there's a piece of truth to the comparisons. When people,
you're right.
There's been very few super disingenuous ones, but it's just a really tall bill to fill with just one book or one other series.
Yeah, I mean, even in terms of just like certain comparisons, like obviously Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, you can see the influence that it had on George R.R. Martin. And in certain things, you're like, oh, that is kind of like that thing. But even in tone and scope, and well, maybe not scope, but tone and whatever, like they're kind of similar, but obviously very, very different. Like they're just different worlds, right? Very much so. But you can see, and so it's kind of cool to pick out those inspirations or latch onto a particular thing, like characters or certain plot things, or like you said, certain journeys or arcs or characters or whatever. You'll find that in a bunch of different series, but it's hard to Game of Thrones just did A Song of Ice and Fire, just did a lot of things very, very well, right? So
absolutely. And you know, and it had a lot of influences on it. I mean, from Jack Vance to Gene Wolfe to Roger Zelazny to Stan Lee. I mean, there are and obviously Tad Williams as well. I've had a lot of people come to me and be like, dude, Song of Ice and Fire is literally a clone of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And I'm like, that's
what I was going to say. There's little pieces where you're like, I see where that came from, but no, it's its own. How about adaptations? Let's talk about adaptations. Like, do you how about this? Let's narrow it down a little bit, because I don't love adaptations a whole lot, but if I'm going to watch one and let's say I want to trust that one was done well, or there's one to check out and I want to read the book, would you read the book first? Would you read the book after? Would you read the book at all and just watch whatever? And if it's worth it, maybe you'll pick up the book. Like, what's your stance on that?
It depends on how much I'm interested in the premise as is, right?
Yeah.
There are times where I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like a book that I would love to read. But then there's times where I'm like halfway interested, and then I find out there's a book, and I'm like, Like, for instance, this is actually a really good example. The show You is based on a book series, and I actually did buy the books, and I will read them. But to be honest, I easily could have just watched the show. Like, I don't need to read
Right.
those books. Not saying they're not good, but like, I don't
Yep.
feel this grab where I'm like, oh, this is probably gonna be something I'm my favorite thing ever. I will read them, but that's probably something I could have just watched the show if I really
I feel the
wanted to.
same on a lot. You know what's frustrating is when the book series and the adaptation just don't not align, but like one or the other just isn't finished or won't be finished. Like A Song of Ice and Fire, we don't have the last couple books, but the series just decided to do whatever the fuck it did and finished it. And so then there's like The Expanse where like the books are finished and then the show got canceled, right? So it's just like you can't really enjoy both, it seems, in their entirety for what they are. It's like one is always either wrong or not good or isn't finished or whatever. It's frustrating, you know? Don't you
Yeah,
think?
well, I think for me, I don't have an issue separating them in my head. I think my frustration. So we'll just obviously use Game of Thrones as an example because
Sure.
it's the most prominent adaptation of the Lord of the Rings, probably. But for me, I get a little bit flustered when people conflate the books and the show. And it's not just casual viewers. Like I've had people who I have a lot of respect for conflate those two things and then maybe put some of the more distasteful things that were in the show into the books where they don't
Right.
exist,
Right. Right.
which gets me really upset. I don't love that because they are two separate things at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But you know, it will forever. And this is what I've been kind of saying for the last few months is like, be very careful about wanting an adaptation of your favorite book series because mine has it. And depending on the day, it's a curse or a blessing. I think overall it's a net positive, to be honest, but
Yeah.
it is
I
not
would agree.
forever. The conversation will forever be changed around the book series. And it will become harder and harder and harder to find people who only talk about the books without any kind of influence from the show.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that to me, like I'm a reader first. Like I don't really want all my favorite. Like I like my books to be books. A lot of people I think read in the hopes that whatever they read and love will become an adaptation. Like that's the ultimate goal. And for me, it is certainly not.
The majority of people I know sort of do an eye roll as soon as they announce an adaptation and go, "Oh man, like please don't ruin this story for me." You know what I mean? Like I think most of us are readers first for sure. But yeah, I don't know. You do a lot of live streams. Do you enjoy this part? Like a lot of people enjoy engaging with live streams and it's fun on the other side. It takes up a lot of your time, probably chews up a lot of your reading time, as you alluded to, right?
Oh yeah.
Is this the part that you enjoy the most? Do you enjoy recording videos and talking to a camera alone in your room?
Oh, live stream.
More? Live stream more.
Live
Yeah.
stream. I like the pressure of being live. I think that it's a fun task to kind of tackle.
Yeah.
I enjoy the process of shooting a video and having a plan. Sometimes it
Mhm.
comes together beautifully, sometimes it does not. But live stream demands all my faculties, especially when
Yeah.
someone else is there, plus
Totally.
the chat. And I enjoy challenges, and I think it's the most challenging thing. It's funny, there's no editing when it comes to live streams, but if you look at the totality of time from prepping for it to doing it, it actually is like 5-6 times longer.
Oh,
Like
totally.
more of my time than normal videos. Normal videos would be far easier for me to do.
Yeah. That's why I asked because I don't know how you fit them all in. It's crazy. And you do them
Well,
so well. So it's, like they're not easy.
I appreciate
So
that.
yeah.
I
man.
would say this, less is more.
Yeah.
So I used to run Chatting with Nuts every week for like, I think maybe even the first year. And it was too much. It was too much. One, simply because there's only so many people I actually want to talk to.
Sure.
And the reasons behind that vary greatly of like chemistry to topics to I actually love bringing on people who I disagree with. I think that those are a lot of fun as long as it remains civil, of course.
Yeah.
But less is more in the sense that I do every 2 weeks, and then sometimes it's every 3 or 4 weeks. Sometimes sometimes I only get out one a month, and of course I want to do more. But there is something to be said about kind of letting it marinate, letting it resonate with people. And also you have to find a balance between being consistent and not being overbearing and uploading too much or whatever. I think what I have done over the last 40 years of what I've tried to accomplish, and I feel successful in it, is that I've created a time slot on a day that people know that I will be there, and it turns into something that you do not want to miss, and that it is an event.
That is true. That is true. And it's actually, and I have to say, it's frustrating and quite annoying actually, because sometimes we're like, hey, we should do a live stream. It's, oh, let's do it on the Friday. We can't because that's a
I mean, you're
chatting
more
with
than
nuts.
welcome. You're more than welcome.
Yeah, but I don't want
crush you.
-7 video views. Yeah, exactly. Like it's literally going to be me watching, like not my wife, and just me and the guest, and like maybe one dude in like Alabama or something. That's basically. I don't know why I picked on Alabama.
Alabama. My
I don't
God,
know.
they have internet there? No, I'm just kidding.
I doubt it.
Alabamans. I'm just kidding.
How much do you allow people's opinions on BookTube, reviews on Goodreads, to affect whether or not you pick up a book or continue with a series? The reason why I want to ask that is because I picked up Poppy War. Like I bought Poppy War. I bought the entire trilogy.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, it was all right to start, right? And then apparently it was divisive. Last book, maybe people didn't like the character. A lot of people didn't like. That is one series that I have. I bought the entire trilogy. It's on my shelf. And as I heard people talk about it, I thought, oh no, like that's not for me. And I just put it away. Like I'm just not going to read it. And I'm guilty of that. Like I just decided based on everyone else's opinions to not form my own and just say, I'm not going to read that. Do you do that? Have you read the Poppy War? Is it terrible?
I've read the Poppy War. I think book 2 is actually borderline great. I really love book 2.
Oh yeah.
I think book 1's a bit of a mess. I don't really enjoy her writing all that much, to be honest with you. And then book 3 is just a really weird book. There's some of it that I love. I like Rin as a character. I think that it's at least something interesting going on and a different type of protagonist. But there is so much in the final book that feels very underwhelming or misplaced or mistimed that is a little odd to me. Like when I finished Burning God, I was like, okay, cool.
Whatever. Yeah.
Right. I like some of the ending points. Like I was like, okay, those are resonating with me. But then once you start thinking back on it a little bit and you're like, okay, well, this plot line went here and resolved in this manner. And then you're like, so that was kind of dumb. Like I'm not going to say if someone liked The Burning God, I wouldn't be like, you're out of your mind.
You're wrong. No, of course.
Yeah, of course not.
But a lot of people have said that. I like when you do your facial reactions. Can you give me a facial reaction for book 3? Okay. Yeah, that's exactly sort of what I imagined. And that's why
I did with Owen last night. I told him, I said, I'm going to name a book and I want you to review it with your face.
Yeah, exactly.
He was excellent at doing it.
Poppy War was
something you should read because it is.
I might.
It's something different. Like there's not a ton of trilogies out there that are going to make such bold statements. And
True.
R.F. Kuang's not exactly subtle in any manner. So you'll get it. You'll get what she's going for. And maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. I think Dragon Republic, in hindsight, if I reread it, maybe I'd feel different. But I thought it was easily the best book of the trilogy. I felt like we did everything to get to that point. That's what she really wanted to write. And part of me wonders, like, hey, could this have been a duology? Maybe a single book, like a bigger book. I don't know. I'm not a writer. She's certainly more talented than I ever could be. So it's hard for me to prescribe.
I might try Babel first and then see.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Obviously very different, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't have. No, and I don't think I will. I'm not a huge fan of her writing style.
Okay, that will be a problem.
It grates on me a little bit, and then I don't know. There's something about that book. So you were talking about how people's reviews affecting, right?
Yeah.
The only time this happens to me now is whenever I find that conversation around a book is annoying, I will just avoid that book like the plague, because eventually if I read a book, I'm eventually going to talk about it somewhere.
Right.
And sometimes books are just really like A Little Life is a great example of this. Like if I never talked about Little Life again in a public setting, I'd be down with that. Like that would be completely cool with me because I find the conversation just taxing.
Okay.
Poppy War is not as bad because I feel like it's very popular. Don't get me wrong, but like I don't talk about it that much. Babel, I feel like everybody's got a real strong opinion about it, and I'm gonna come away with it probably feeling a little bit of both, and then just feel stuck in the middle where I'm getting yelled at, and I'm like, I just don't really. Not that would keep me ever from reading a book I'm interested in, but I'm already not that interested in her works because I didn't like her style. So but I will avoid. Sometimes I'll avoid books where there's just a lot of noise around it, and I'm like, I don't need brainwaves going to this. I'll read something I'm really excited about and do something else.
Yeah. How do you decide? Actually, I want to read Joanna's comment. Reader first is one of the many things I love about Jimmy. It shows on his channel and the way he engages with books. Bonus, the Fantasy Network video production is also great. That is true. I
I
agree,
told her
Joanna.
to say that actually. Joanna, I'll
How
send you
much
my
are you
link.
paying her?
$5.
Um,
It's $5.
how do you decide on books? Now, we talked about your reading taste being varied and all this stuff, and
Mhm.
you like what you like and whatever. How do you choose what to review on the channel? Because you steer clear of stuff where the conversation's kind of annoying, and you might
Yeah.
wait to put in your thoughts to add value maybe at the right time, or how do you decide? You read so many books.
I
How do
read
you pick? Like,
So I don't really review much anymore, I find
yeah,
that my wrap-ups are a
do
challenge
enough,
in brevity, and trying to keep it beneath, like, 25 minutes is very hard,
right?
especially if you read 5 or 6 books, because I wanna say something meaningful about each book, but wanna keep it concise, and
Mm,
I found that that challenge was something I was willing to tackle more than individual reviews for, like, the last year and a half, and I've been pretty happy
right.
with it. But when it comes to reviewing a book, the books that I would decide to review were ones that I felt like people who tune into my channel would like to hear about. A lot of the books that I would review, of course, I liked, but I was almost more interested in the ones that made me conflicted, because now you're trying to
Mm,
balance two perspectives at once while also considering every single person that it's taking the time to click on your video, which I find to be, something I take
that
pretty
is true.
serious. That people time is precious, and people are deciding to spend their time to listen to me. I want to be able to formulate thoughts that would quickly decipher whether or not that book is for them or not, and what the book is about. So for me, it was about the books that I felt like I had something to say about, but also ones that almost felt like a bit of a mountain to climb, of like, how do you
Hmm.
break this down? Like, how do you explain Book of the New Sun? Like, that was a good one.
Right.
How do you explain Elric of Manibene? Like, to a modern audience that has kind of forgotten about this fantasy legend that has inspired so many things. Like,
Yeah.
how do I relay the excitement I felt when I cracked open that first Elric novel? And I
Yeah.
have not continued yet. I know that there's
I
varying
have them on the
quality.
shelf down here somewhere, and I'm keen to try them. I feel like I'll vibe with those for sure.
Yeah, I felt a duty to relay the enthusiasm that it inspired me with when I opened it up and realized just like how, there's so many worlds to explore out there, Theo. Like,
Yeah,
I
I know.
love getting immersed in a fantasy world. I talk about Ostenard constantly with Tad Williams, but it doesn't stop in like 1999. It doesn't stop in 1990 or 1987 or
Yep.
whenever Song and Thorn
Yep.
began. There are things that have just lasted throughout decades of worlds to be stomped in and explored and experienced. And for me, especially fantasy books, when I find something that has captured me in my imagination and immersed me in it, that is one of the highest praises I can give a book, because I like to read for various reasons, but
Hmm.
escapism is 100% at the top of that list.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
it's like, how do I relay that feeling to people while also
Yeah.
trying to give, facts about the book, and also making sure that I don't say everyone should read. Yeah, I don't want to ever
Yeah.
do. I've
Yeah.
had a lot of people comment on the Elric video and say Moorcock is the greatest author. Everyone else sucks. I've also had people say that he's the worst character ever reading. He's a brooding emo boy, and Michael Moorcock's
Wow.
an
Wow.
ass. I've had everything in between on
Yeah.
it. So how do you balance those kind of views
Well,
when making
this
your
this
video?
comment is sort of on how to balance too, because when you do a review, like, do you target people that you'd like to recommend this to, or I should clarify, people that haven't read it, because some people you might recommend it to, some people
Mm.
you might say, hey, this doesn't jive. Or do you target more to people that are maybe seeking this review out after having read it and would like your thoughts without necessarily saying spoiler, non-spoiler? How do you balance one review to target sort of everyone? Or do
I
you?
want So I think in a 60-40 split, it's people
Mm,
who have not read the book to people who have read the book. And the main reason is because I would like more people to read. Simple as that.
that's a pretty
I
good
just
answer
want more
for sure.
people reading. I want people going out supporting these authors that I think are worth it. Even if I don't love the authors or love the book, maybe I just want to see more of whatever they're doing, or whatever it
Yep.
is. I would like to be able to do the book justice for the people who have read it and understand what I'm saying. And that's whenever I get someone like Library Ladder that comes into my channel
Hmm.
out of nowhere and is like, your Tad Williams reviews were excellent, and this is a guy that's read Tad for the last like 30 years. That means a lot to me. And that is definitely something I consider. But I also want to have people find interest in new works and discover new worlds and new authors to read. And for that, the challenge is making sure that I'm not just blanket recommending stuff and
Right.
actually identifying who it's for. So that takes up a lot of my brain power whenever I'm even doing my wrap ups. My wrap ups are
Yeah.
really just my book reviews, but condensed, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
totally.
kind of the challenge for me. However, the one thing that I don't necessarily love is when you are making a video as someone coming into a community around a book, like, a series or even just a standalone book,
Yep.
there is this pressure of having to almost like prove that you understood everything or prove that you
Yeah.
read the book right.
I'm one of you. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I
It's annoying, man.
categorically reject it. I refuse to put that pressure on myself. And a lot of that came from covering One Piece. And some of those videos
I've
began to feel
heard.
like it was a litmus test. Like, did I enjoy not that I enjoy it or did I even understand it, but did I enjoy it in the right way?
Right.
And this is a symptom usually of groupthink or gatekeeping, and I have absolutely zero interest in it. And I cheer for the people who cover Malazan or Stormlight and get things wrong and are willing to learn and to come with
Absolutely.
a different perspective. That is so 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 important. There should be absolutely no monarchy or some sort of like ruling hand of exactly how to experience something. So that is one of the pitfalls if you are going to make videos for folks that have experienced the story already, that are coming to your video because they love the thing.
Mhm.
I think you have to balance out like wanting to do everyone justice that loves the thing but also or hates the thing, but also making sure that you're not just trying to like prove yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a huge deterrent in the community. And
Mhm.
part of the dark side of booktube sometimes is like the gatekeeping a little bit on some fandoms. But I would argue that most of them are well intentioned, and although it comes
Yeah.
across as, hey, you're not enjoying this right, or you didn't understand this, but they desperately want you to be one of them and enjoy it in the way that that's not right or wrong,
Mhm.
maybe objectively more wrong than right to force someone's experience to mirror your own. But yeah, they want you to be part of it. It's just sometimes it's off-putting and you're like, dude, we can have a different journey. We're different people. So I don't know.
Yeah, and also we have to be able to accept the fact that some people will not resonate with things like we do. I resonate
Yeah.
heavily with Fitz from Realm of the Arlings, but I have a lot of people that I know that I consider good readers and good friends, and they do not, and they do not connect or vibe with any of the themes in Realm of the Elderlings. And you know what? That's valid. Like they don't have to appreciate those things. They just
Yeah.
simply don't. And that's the beauty of individuals reading books, is that every single one of us, no matter who you are, how close you think your taste is to someone else, you are an individual, you are
Mhm.
unique, and you are dynamic. And nobody can share the same view as you on a book. They might agree on certain points, but even in your own experiences of agreeing,
Thanks,
it's
Jimmy.
different.
No one puts Theo in a corner, you know?
That's right.
Thank you. Reading the last book in Warlord Chronicles after I finished Dune.
Mm.
One of my favorite series of all time. Like what a good trilogy, man. You've obviously read Warlord Chronicles, right?
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
my boy
It's
Andre.
so good.
He's in the chat right now, or at least he was before. And he's reading Excalibur, and he's like, "Man, I don't know. Excalibur is just not hitting that same high as Enemy of God." And I think
Enemy of God.
that's a big shoe to fill, man. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Enemy of God's ending is fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 That's a good one. It was on my top 10 list. Enemy of
Mhm.
God, book 2, because of the climax, not the
Yeah.
climax in the trilogy, but just the moments that it hits, much like A Storm of Swords. It
Yeah.
just does so much in one book so expertly that I was like, holy crap, what a good book. Did you know that every fantasy book is like A Song of Ice and Fire? You kind of talked about that a little bit, right?
You could
With
almost
bits and
say
pieces.
that A Song of Ice and Fire is like every
Is
fantasy
like
book.
everything else. Have you read anything? Have you found anything that has scratched the itch in more ways than everything else? Like, have you found the one thing that's kind of,
Um,
is it Tad Williams in
I
certain
think
ways?
I think in certain ways, like the two that stand out to me. So I've always, again, I kind of said this earlier, but like it's like, well, what about A Song of Ice and Fire? And I'm
Yeah.
working on a video about this too, because
Oh,
it literally was the mission of making booktube channels. So like, why wouldn't I do this?
yeah.
Mage's Blood, Kev, is the series I'm most excited to read. Actually, Rune Lords too, dude. I'm really excited for Rune Lords. But
Well, I'm
uh
behind. I'm going to catch up.
yeah, there is a case to be made that the dagger and the coin is
I want to read that.
probably the experience most adjacent. But again, I say that, and then people are going to expect whatever they got out of that series, and I just can't guarantee that's going to be the case. But The Dagger and the Coin is the most underrated fantasy series I've ever read. For me, just, underrated. What's that really mean? I don't know. I can't quantify that for you all. I just don't see it talked about even as much as like Long Price Quartet, which I think is really good. But for me, The Dagger and the Coin has just some of my favorite characters and storylines, and the themes are incredible. And I think one of the themes that George tackles in A Song of Ice and Fire, but not to the level that he wanted to, is classism. And classism does kind of fall into the backdrop of A Song of Ice and Fire as it grew and became more convoluted. I don't mean convoluted in a bad way, but just more complicated series.
Yes.
And certain themes are going to bubble up to the top no matter what. And George wrote whatever came to him, which is fantastic. And I love that. But classism takes up a good amount of the thematic value for A Song of Ice and Fire, but it does kind of fall into the wayside. And I think that The Dagger and the Coin, the themes of classism are amazingly good. I mean, really phenomenal job. But I don't like The Wheel of Time, but I've told people, if you like the world, like the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, and like you're so interested in all these other places and the different ways that these cultures interact with each other, like Wheel of Time does have some pretty monumental locations and settings. Like I'm not a huge Wheel of Time fan at all. I DNF the series, but Camelin is sick. Yeah, Camelin is sick, dude. There is a lot of really cool settings in Wheel of Time. So people kind of get shocked when I say Wheel of Time, but I'm like,
right.
There is something.
It does stuff. Yeah.
It does. And it's not like A Song of Ice and Fire. It's not like 1-to-1, but like there are aspects of it that Robert Jordan and George shared, and they were friends, by the way. Like I don't.
Yeah.
Like a weird.
You can like multiple things. Yeah. For different reasons. What was I going to ask you? Where did you DNF Wheel of Time? Because what's put me off is the slog and the commitment. And I'm like, I might enjoy it well enough, but do I want to read the, however, like 15 books or whatever it is, right? Like it's a lot.
Yeah. So I stopped at The Fires of Heaven because I genuinely did not like that book. It's one of my least favorite books I've ever read. And
wow,
there's a couple of different reasons for that. I have tried the prologue for book 6 like 3 times, and it's not even that it's bad. It's just so long that I read like a little bit and I'm like, okay, here's a little, reminding me of these things. And then I just keep falling off. Will I finish Wheel of Time one day? Probably because it is what it is. Jimmy Faded Fires of Heaven slapped. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people love it. That's some of people's favorite book. I could have sworn that Kev hated Fires of Heaven and that he liked book 6. I
think he's trolling you right now. He's trying to be contrarian, trying to see if he can rile you up.
Yeah, but I knew I was in trouble when I didn't really like Shadow Rising. Talking about being influenced, young Jimothy getting back into fantasy and stuff. Daniel Green just constantly going on about how it's the greatest fantasy book ever written, and expectations probably played a role in my disappointment because I was expecting this like transformative experience. And I remember just finishing the Shadow Rising and just being like, okay.
Interesting.
Book's over.
What didn't land for you? Just, I guess as a package, it just wasn't, or was there a couple things you can extract and say that was terrible, not what I wanted?
Yeah. I think for me, it was the Rand stuff was supposed to be this like profound moment towards the end of the book, and it just none of it landed with me at all. Like I felt no attachment, but to the core of this, I don't want to like sit here and just hate on the Wheel of Time, by the way, but for me, I just never believed many of the things Robert Jordan was telling me, and that means that like these boys are friends, these boys are this and that, and I'm like, I don't believe this at all, and that comes from different experiences in life and how you treat your friends, I guess, because people are like, oh yeah, Matt, is trying to turn his back on Rand immediately when Rand's going through this terrible time. And that's how friends are. And I'm like, not my friends.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I only have like in real life, I have like 2 friends. That's probably why, because I have a very high threshold for horseshit, or I should say low threshold for BS. So when I just never bought
Pacing.
into any of it, dude. I never bought into it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
The Great Hunt is an awesome fantasy book, though. It's like my
Yeah.
favorite. It's the Calvary moment in fantasy. Yeah, it's really
Oh, Chadia, did you like The Great Hunt? It sounds like maybe not.
Some people don't like The Great Hunt. I love The Great Hunt. Was like its peak, and I like book 1, 2, and 3, and then book 4 just started taking a toll, and then book 5 I actively dislike.
How about this? I'm curious. At what point do you feel, let's say you're reading a series and you stop reading a book and it's a while before you pick up the next, and we're talking a series, not just like 2 books or 3, whatever. Mm-hmm. How much time do you give yourself before needing to reread to catch up, or do you just bounce back in and go, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, I can pick up the next book? What could possibly go wrong?
Well, one of the beautiful things about what we do and what other people do here on the platform is that a lot of times you can go and watch reviews and get some context clues. And in my experience, I'm always shocked by how much I remember once I start reading again. Like if I just
that's what I've been yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And sure, I miss a couple things, but especially if it's like Wheel of Time or Malazan or even like the Second Apocalypse, which isn't hugely popular, there's resources online for a lot of these series. Now, the bigger issue is these debut series with authors that are taking, a chance by writing this big series, and you're reading them once every 2 years, and no one else has read them. That's where it gets a little bit trickier.
You're right.
I'm telling you, I know because I've talked to authors, they hate it. But I think what has come before sections at the start.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
Are so valuable for newer authors to do. And
why do authors hate it?
Tad Williams does it. And if Tad will do it, all of you should do it. I'm sorry. I think that it helps out quite a bit. Now, to contradict myself, as I always do, how would you even do that for a Malazan book?
I don't know, because I'm not smart enough to read Malazan.
Sure you are.
Rogue will come in and say, Theo, calm down. It's fine. It's fine.
It's
just
fine.
read it.
They're books, bro. They're books. It's fine. But seriously, like there are some books that are just, I don't know how you summarize the 5 books that came before the Bone Hunters. I don't know how you would ever do it. That might be more challenging than writing the book for the author. So I see reasons why it wouldn't happen, but a lot of these, especially kind of like run of the mill series, I'm like, you could recap this in like 5, 10
You know
days.
what I like is, and what I think more authors should do. So I agree with you. The what comes before should be a thing. I think standard practice. I appreciate it because I'm stupid and my memory's gone because I have dementia. But I would appreciate it.
It's jiu-jitsu.
Been hit too many, been choked out too many times. You like Christopher Rocchio, who I don't know if he's done this for every book up to now, but I know for a lot of them he did the video recaps, even a video review, kind of a spoilery review of the book, the key events and how things started, how things ended, and just kind of like a bit of a here's the story right in this book, and you can just pick them off and jump in wherever you have to. So
I think that's awesome. I mean, that's why you can hear the gears turning and people wanting to take advantage of this Stormlight 5 coming out, right? They're like, oh, I gotta get the recaps out, the recaps.
But I wish I could do recaps. I'm terrible. I can't do those, but they'll do well.
I've been mulling over a really big project in my mind for A Song of Ice and Fire, and we'll see what happens. It's a lot of work, and I think it'll be very little reward, but it's something that I feel in my soul that I should do. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think recaps are extraordinarily valuable. I really do. I mean, Daniel Green's Wheel of Time recaps, actually, I love those because I would watch them just to make sure I got everything.
That might be a good resource, actually.
Yeah. Those are his best videos, I think. He's so passionate about it.
Oh yeah. He's passionate about a lot of things. Do you have a lot of friends in I think you mentioned you have one friend, and that's probably your wife. But do you have real life friends that read? Like, would you, obviously the community is important, but like, especially now with technology and being a modern era, like people don't get together at a coffee shop and have a book club anymore. It's not as, it happens, but it's like an old person thing to do. And we tend to do this, right? Or Discords or whatever. Would you like to do that? Like, have you sought out in-person, like book clubs? Would you get value out of that?
No.
Do you like the online community more?
I like the online community more because we're not restrained. Like, This is I don't know. This might be a jerk thing to say, but like a lot of us settle, like especially prior to the internet age, right? Like we had to settle for whatever we had. And for someone like me who did not fit into his hometown very much, and I'm not. By the way, this is not me saying I'm above my hometown. I just simply was very different.
Right.
I had different interests.
Sometimes that happens. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't like tractor pulls. It's just not my thing. I don't hate on them. And you know, I'll stick up for people who love that stuff, but it's just simply not something that moves the needle for me.
Yeah.
So, but we're so limited to the scope of where we live, and if you don't fit in where you live, then all of a sudden you're a pariah, and you don't have the options, and you're kind of friends with people that you don't necessarily want to be friends with, or you wouldn't necessarily. You know,
Kevin wouldn't be your friend at this point. So
no, Kev's my boy.
You lost Kevin.
Kev is very much from an area that is similar to where I grew up. And like I said, like I know he loves, dirt track racing and stuff. Like I just never really liked that stuff. I'd go to it.
Right.
But it feels like you're almost like friends or whatever are like obligatory because they're near you. Right. So with the in-person book club, I think it's just kind of limiting at this point. And I find a lot of value in what we're doing right now, just as much as I do a face-to-face interaction. Now, without a doubt, energy is very different. I think people are a little bit more willing to listen in person. So that there's something to be said about being in person. If I could do the my streams, chatting with in person every episode, I 100% would, without exception. Right. But I don't really need the in-person book club. I kind of like where I am. With the online discussion, it allows for people from other countries to interact, which has a huge impact on the way people see things and the lens that they're looking through, which is really cool. I do have readers in my real life, though. My best friend Andrew, who had not read a book since middle school, I think, has now read a ton of books. I mean, he's read like Blood Meridian. He's reading A Song of Ice and Fire for the first time. I mean, I actually
broken him right away. Yeah.
I started to think about it, and I'm like, dude, I am like setting him up with the most like legendary dude bro like regimen of all time. Like he read Stoner, he's read Blood Meridian, but he's also read My Dark Vanessa, Boy Parts, My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Like he's read a lot of things. He read John Gwynn's Faithful in the Fallen series. Like his
interesting.
The recommendations I hit him with are insane. He just read Ohio by Stephen Markley. Kev's gonna love that. And he messaged me at the end of it. He's like, dude, what was this book? Like this took a turn and it just did not relent. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty dark. So he's kind of my my lab rat. You know, I just kind of experiment with all my recommendations onto him, but I know him just as well as I know myself. So I'm able to kind of know what's going to work with him. And that is a testament, by the way, of like, if you know someone, I don't think you have to limit yourself to a genre or just one author.
Right. Totally.
If you can really figure out what makes someone tick when they're reading, you can actually, you know, recommend a wide variety of things. So
do you take pleasure like do you take pleasure in when you recommend something? Let's say, how about this, when you recommend something that maybe you yourself didn't like, but you know the reader well enough, you know that book well enough, and you link them up and it works and you're just like, yes, high five.
100%. I recommend Poppy War to Andrew and he loves the Poppy War. And I think it's just okay. I think it's fine. I think it's bad at its worst, and it's almost great at its best. But I was like, yeah, you should definitely read this. I mean, there's been books like that I've recommended to Kelsey as well. So like, and that's where I feel like maybe I'm actually serving my function as someone who is curating books for people, or and you know, showing books to thousands of people, is that being able to put aside my personal feelings and being able to identify the strengths of the book to the person's taste. I mean, that is probably my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's nice when that works. I'm in a weird position where I'm still making my way through a lot of popular books. And so I haven't deviated as much from the mainstream to be able to find those hidden gems for people like you can.
Yeah.
I find that your taste and mine, this is kind of interesting because your taste and mine, they overlap a lot, but they diverge an awful lot too. I would suspect, probably because you read a lot more than I do and a lot more diverse than I do. But yeah, I think you would be one where I would place a lot of weight on your recommendation for me, for example, but because you know people quite well and you know the books quite well and you can articulate that stuff and what makes a book good or bad or whatever for that reader.
Yeah.
But I find that, I don't know. I don't know if we would have enough in common where you'd be the guy where I'm, Jimmy, like, what should I read next? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know, because you read so much.
I mean, that's fair. I think for me, part of the charm of it all is I love getting to know people. I love understanding people, what makes them tick. And it is something that I have gotten decently good at, of being able to kind of like quickly identify traits about people or even like mannerisms. I do that subconsciously, but within like an hour of talking to someone that I've had a good conversation with, I can generally get a beat. I'm not always right, but
Right. Sure.
I think part of the reason why I like it so much is like because I'm getting to know people and getting
Right.
to know them, and handing a book to someone, I think is like one of the best things you can do for them. It's amazing. I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said like his greatest friends are the ones that hand him a book or recommend him a book or something like that. It's a Abe Lincoln quote. It might be
cool.
It might be a 4chan meme, and I'm falling for it. There's an opportunity that's true. But I think that one of the reasons why I am able to feel like I've been successful in identifying what people like for instance, if I went through my read list, I think I could probably offer you 2 to 3 books that you would enjoy. I would feel I feel pretty confident knowing you. But my Discord is full of people who hate everything I love. My patron Discord, and people who value it enough to be like, I would like to support this channel to continue to do what he does.
They just like you.
Well, yeah. And I think that I would hope that they feel like they can talk to me about any of those books.
Totally.
That's very cool. But I mean, like, I'm not kidding. Like, I feel like over half of my audience hates the books I like, and I'm cool with that. And I would never recommend, for instance, Cloud Atlas. Love it. One of my favorite books of all time. Would never want you to read it because
I'm terrified.
It'd be a waste of your time. It would just be a waste of your time, I think. Now, could I be wrong?
I've heard such conflicting. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Bone Clocks. Bone Clocks would be the test. If you read Bone Clocks and you came back to me and said, dude, I kind of really like what Mitchell was doing here, then I would feel a little bit more comfortable maybe going in. Because we also have to remember, people change. Their taste changes vastly. So it's a time and place type of thing.
Brian was pissed. I'm not gonna lie.
So I'm confused. Brian, did you hate Cloud Atlas? Because I felt like you liked it when you talked to me.
He didn't love it. He didn't love it.
Confused.
He likes you. Didn't like Cloud Atlas very much.
But he talked to me. I felt like he was very positive, and then I heard him being like, Jimmy recommended. It sounded like I like shot his dog.
He did like it. Oh, interesting. I thought he didn't like it. And that's actually what scared me, because I feel the people that I hear talk about it that like it, like loved it. And then the people that disliked it were like, why did I do this? You know what I mean?
See, and that what he's saying, it was just work. There's a lot of people who feel like that book is work. I'm going to tell you how much I like this damn book. I was in line at Harry Potter and Universal Studio ride for Hagrid's Ride, and I was reading. I bought the ebook in line because I wanted to read it so bad. And I was reading.
Did you finish the book because the line is 22 hours long, or what?
I got very lucky. I had some fast passes, so we were.
You're one of those. I get
45 minutes. You have to. If you're only going for a day, you literally have to. Let me tell you how much Universal cost me for one day for me and my wife with 2 fast passes. Not the highest tier fast pass, but just like the common blue collar fast pass. $880 for a day.
Jimmy, listen to me right now.
Crash.
Me and my wife and a couple friends of ours, another couple, we decided as West Coast Canadians to fly to Orlando, Florida to go to Disney World as a bucket list like 2 years ago for Christmas.
20 grand.
We did. We did 8 days. I think we did like 8 days there or 7, and then 2 days in Universal, and then a day flying, day back. So it was like 11 or 12 days total, right? But let's call it 10 days in the park. Dude. Not in Vancouver, but I appreciate where your head's at. We literally probably could have done 2 to 3 weeks in like Italy, for the same price.
Let me tell you,
I didn't get to see anyone. I didn't get to see Alan. Why'd I even go? You know what I mean?
Then I plan my vacations around seeing people I know from BookTube now. Like, that's kind of what I do. But I literally 100%. Had a room booked for Sander Con or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know what it's called. Dragon Bane, I don't know.
Dragon Bone,
yeah, Dragon Bone Chair. And I'm going to Dragon Bone Chair conference with Sanderson, and I look at the cost of like the plane tickets and the hotel, and it's like, I'm like, this is absurdly priced to go to Salt Lake City, and I was like, I'm not going. So I looked, and Ireland was significantly cheaper. So I just went to Ireland for a week instead, and it was much better. Kev, I will be in New York in March.
That's awesome.
I will be meeting.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'll be going. I'll meet Kev and my friend Ben and my friend Amanda, who are from Australia. Oh, well, Amanda's actually from the United States and then moved to Australia. Now she's coming back. It's a long thing. But yeah. I plan a lot of my vacations around meeting people.
Ted. Yeah, I would too. Honestly, I would love to do that. I romanticize like, meeting up with certain people and like, it's tough to travel and it's expensive. Hey, guess what's going on right now? I'm supposed to fly to London next week, actually on the Tuesday.
Okay.
Family trip, like my wife going to go see some family, whatever. It's about a week. It was kind of impromptu, but so we have a couple airlines and the main one is Air Canada and people don't love them and we try to avoid them, but they're reliable and they're there and whatever. And so for the longest time, every time I booked a flight on WestJet, which is our preferred because they're nicer, they're cheaper, whatever, they kept going on strike. They were having all these things like you couldn't, it was hectic. It was stressful. And they screwed up our flights a couple times. Once when we went to Orlando, it was a little bit tricky to get there because of them. And so this time I'm like, I'm booking Air Canada. At least I know that they're going to get us there, right? What did they announce a little while ago? Yeah, Air Canada does suck. What did they announce a little while ago? A strike, because their 10-year contract just came up. And so now they're supposed to strike the day after we leave. So how are we getting back? Not a clue. I don't know. Flying sucks. And it's so expensive.
Yeah, I am not a fan anymore of flying. I travel a lot for work now. And by a lot, I mean like 4 or 5 times a year. And that's plenty.
Okay, yes.
The appeal has worn way off. The only good thing about a flight, and I know everyone here can relate.
You can just read. There's nothing else to do.
That's right.
Just read.
Hey, man, having 4 hours with no cell phone service and a book is honestly pretty serene if it wasn't for the uncomfortable. You're a big guy, too. It is so uncomfortable to sit.
It's tough.
It's tough. Very tough.
And you know what happens, Jimmy? You know what happens because the universe hates me is because I'm always that guy I'm 6'3". I'm 6'3" right now. I'm about 250. I should probably not be 250, but I'm 6'3" either way. And I'm always the guy with the one giant guy in front of him that has to recline his seat all the way back. No one else is doing it, but the one guy in front of me, and I have my knees tucked to my chest, basically trying to get my tray down and have a cup of coffee. And it's impossible. And I want to kill myself on the entire flight.
Yeah, there's no affinity, like there's nothing special about flying anymore. Like,
no. And I can pay for I could pay for more legroom and whatever, but like it's
I ain't giving him
really pricey.
No, absolutely not, dude. First class, 6-hour flight to Ireland. First class seat was $4,000. You're out of your mind, dude. That's 10 times what my ticket costs. No.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait till we can just like go somewhere, And you know what's crazy? Because of the strike I was telling you about, I was looking at flights on the way back from London just in case, right? Refundable flight. Let's have a backup in case the other one gets delayed. Of course, they've jacked up all the prices. So now a one-way ticket is anywhere between $12,000 to $3,000 Canadian. So that's like, still a couple grand US, right? It depends. And we paid like less than that for 2 people round trip, right? So it's just like, you can't win. Anyway. Yeah, I'm just going to VR go to London. I'm going to pretend like I'm there. I'm just going to FaceTime family and say, hey, like I'm around the corner. You know?
Could you just turn the camera around? Let me look at this clock. Sick. Got it. I think I got the vibe. I read the synopsis.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
Yeah. Worldcon in Seattle. By the way.
Okay. Where was that comment? Was there a comment?
It just came up. It's from Josephine. It said that August 2025 Worldcon Seattle. I'm
planning to go to that.
I will be there. There's literally no chance I'm not going. First off, Seattle's one of my last cities I need to see in America.
Okay.
And 2, it's Worldcon, and 3, Georgia's probably going to be there. So it's a no-brainer.
Okay, pause there. So I'm going to go just because it's like a 2-hour drive from me. So like, why wouldn't I? Second of all, I heard someone say that they don't really know a lot of the authors that are going to be there. They don't think it's going to be a big thing. Like apparently Worldcon is a thing, right? Are authors that we're going to know going to be there? Like,
what if I told you I don't care about the authors and I just want to meet my friends?
Okay, so that's so 100% I agree with you. I don't know if we should say that, but yes, I agree.
I'm serious,
However, I'm worried that it's not going to attract all of our pals if like the authors won't be there, right? Why would someone travel? Let's say
I'm going. Okay, that's all you need.
That is true. As long as you advertise that you're going to attract everyone, then I'll come.
Yeah, please? I mean, George goes to Worldcons almost always. He's also just a short hop from New Mexico up there. And honestly,
true.
That's the only author I care. I would love to see Tad. I know Tad's West Coast, so maybe he'll be there. But like ultimately, how about this for you? I'm actually very curious about this because you follow a lot of hobbies where there's notable people. Do you get like attached to the stardom of authors? Because I don't. I don't get
authors. No. Well, look, if I bumped into George R. R. Martin, that would be I just of someone of his caliber for sure. But like, no, on the whole, no. And I wonder, you know why I think that is? I feel like it's because we're so in love with the story and the IP that like you don't see the author's face. Like, you know, if I ran into, you know, I don't know, an MMA guy or a whatever, like I watch them do their thing. If you watch a movie, you watch that actor do their thing. I'm not watching George R. R. Martin not write his books. You know what I mean? So my thing is, I'm reading the books. The author's the last thing on my mind. It's just when I eventually pair them and say, wow, what a cool book. This author's awesome. Sometimes I don't even know what an author looks like. I would never recognize them.
I don't know what most authors look like. And there are very few, like
Stephen King would be one, 100%.
I would say Stephen King and George R. R. Martin, like some of these people are like transcended just being an author, right? Like they're celebrity status at this point. But I still don't, I don't know. I bumped into Dustin Poirier last time I was in Vegas. And I just gave him, like, I didn't ask him for I don't know. I never do this. And I think it's from wrestling.
Maybe.
I shared locker room with some absolute like childhood heroes, like certifiably amazing to me. And I think it just completely nullified the starstruck effect on me.
Really? Maybe you just don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh, hey, that's cool. There's Dustin Poirier. He's wearing that same stupid shirt he wears every press conference. Literally, it was the exact same shirt. I was like, Jesus Christ, someone's got to get this guy another shirt. It's absurd.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's also very small man. And he would kill me.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's small.
Yeah. Yeah. He's very small. He would absolutely rip my throat down and piss down my neck. But yeah.
Wow. Well, there goes the monetization for this video. Anyway, I'm just kidding.
Oh, my bad. COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you afraid to say COVID?
You know what? I'm not, to be honest, I'm not. It was more out of like, I sort of adhered to the, like, are we not supposed to say it? Is it cliche? Like, is it just out of respect for like, you know,
saying COVID and while COVID was killing me.
I personally
I never got demonetized. I don't understand where this came from.
I didn't really care about that. It was more like people were just sick and tired of hearing it, and like, so let's just like fuck COVID, basically. You know what I mean? That was it. For me, that was it. I don't give a shit about whatever. Yeah.
I see. So you're coming at it from a fatigue perspective.
A little bit of fatigue, a little bit of like, if we don't say it, it never happened. You know, it's like Voldemort. You know, just who cares? You know.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Hey, what happened with jiu-jitsu? Forget the people in the comments. This stream's over now. I want to talk to you. What happened with jiu-jitsu? You firstly, got injured?
This is very important. Someone told me to say curva. So I have to say curva. I hope I did not just say something super offensive. They said for the polls like me, curva. So jiu-jitsu, yeah. I'm done. I haven't been in many months now. And I am so happy I quit.
Really? You don't miss it?
Not even a fucking bit. No, dude. No.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, hang on a second. You're obviously an athlete. You obviously lift. You've done wrestling. You've done, you like your stuff, right?
Yeah.
To do jujitsu, and I've done a lot of different martial arts. I know I don't look the part, but I've done an awful lot my whole life. That was one thing that I really, really did.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is one of the more difficult to do. I would say it's probably up there with one of the most challenging for a number of reasons. Physically, cognitively, like everything. For you to have, because you got your purple belt, and I would just want people to know, for someone to obtain a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, like that is beyond a black belt in a lot of martial arts. Like you are now good at jiu-jitsu. You're pretty much an expert. Brown, you develop your game, you polish up, you fill the holes. Black, you're just relearning some of the stuff, and you're really just polishing up, and you're a really good brown belt, right? Purple belt is like you're advanced and you could kill people in the street, right?
You're a black belt that isn't refined.
That isn't you're like you're a black belt in training, okay? And so for people to understand, like you didn't just do jiu-jitsu for like 6 months and was like, like you got very far. And so first credit to you, but second of all, like what, yeah, you're injured because I'm injured right now. I haven't gone to jujitsu in a few months. It's frustrating. And I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but yeah, what's going on with that? Because we had that in common. That was cool. Now we have less in common. So I feel like our friendship is dissolving, but let's try and save it online right now.
Yeah, I think with jiu-jitsu, so I did about 7 years, right?
Yeah.
I switched schools about a
Did this
year
happen?
and a half ago.
Okay. No, I don't think that happened.
No. I
Okay.
mean, I've went for some 13-year-olds that are absolute monsters. Like the
Oh,
new generation
competitive, like 15,
is
16
bad.
year olds. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Oh yeah.
And
You're into golf now, right?
yeah, dude, golf is so much
Okay.
better.
Sorry. Go ahead. You
Though it has some of the same issues that I have with jiu-jitsu. But so did it for a long time, and very much I mean, I did it 4 or 5 times a week, minus a year for COVID that I took off, which I don't figure into the 7 years. But
Yep. It's a long
I don't
time.
know, man. I switched schools about a year and a half ago. My professor, which was Max Geminis, he's the top 10 in the world, in my opinion.
Yep,
He's
he's
100%
known.
one of the greatest heavyweight jiu-jitsu competitors of all time. Was my coach. I got my blue belt and my purple belt from him. And he went and started his own school about 45 minutes away. I could not make that jump. I despised the school that I was at and how it was ran. So I went to a new school to try to save jiu-jitsu for myself because I was done, and it worked for a little bit. And as you know, the stripe system, right? You get your stripes or whatever. So I didn't get a stripe for I was a purple belt for almost 2 years, and I didn't get a stripe. And whenever I kind of was inferring a little bit, like, what's going on here? Because I'm kind of like, I'm not like running classes, but I absolutely am in the leadership role.
Help. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Go watch those white belts, show them the whatever. Yeah.
Yes. I was always helping, always trying to be giving and whatnot. And I was kind of told that, they didn't even consider promoting anyone for the first year or two that they're at the gym if they didn't get their belts. And I was like, oh, okay.
It's one of those now. Yeah.
Yeah. And that bothered me a lot because I clearly had the respect of my peers. But this isn't the ultimate thing, because the only reason why I thought about staying, and this is why I decided to quit, is I said, well, I really want the black belt, which is, I don't know, another 6-7 years possibly, because of how slow things were moving. Yeah. And in this time, as I'm wrestling with this, I tapped a black belt, which was really cool. Big moment in jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
And then
it doesn't happen often, but when it does, you remember it.
Yep. I got tapped the following week. I got tapped by a white belt.
Really?
And yes, dude. I messed around. I got myself in a bad position on purpose.
Yep.
And I got choked out.
You were too deep. Yeah, I've done that before. I've let the white belts work, and you're like, oh, they know what to do from here now. Yep. Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It turns out he knew how to do a Darce choke. And I was like, you know what? Fair play to the guy.
Yeah.
Good, humble experience. But I went home and I thought about this, and I said, okay, so what does a black belt really mean? You know what I mean? Like, if I, as a purple, you know what I mean? Like, what is we're talking about a degrees of difference, right?
Yep.
As far as defending yourself, I am more than capable. I also took striking, so I know enough. Yep. I feel very confident in my abilities.
Totally.
So now, from purple to black, which is another $20,000 of years in fees. Think about this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna improve 2 to 3%, and I'm really gaming against people who are also at that level. So we're talking about degrees of difference of succeeding and not succeeding. And that is really cool if you're still into it. But I simply fell out of love with the thing, man. I did it for a long time. It
happens. Yeah.
I was getting banged. I was always injured, which wasn't very fun. But also for me, I mean, I was literally in rolls, dead heat rolls, biting down on the mouthpiece, forehead to forehead, intense. And I would be actively bored while I was doing it. I was not engaged.
Really?
I'd win some. I'd lose some.
Even with the upper belts, even with the...
Yes, I was just bored, dude. I was just so bored. And I would find myself being like, man, I'd rather be home right now. Looking at the clock, all right, are we almost done? And you can only do that so many times. And I'm also... I have very low self-confidence. And I have no trust in myself to be good at anything. So
wow, I find that so hard to believe. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I'm very quick to quit things. I know that sounds weird, but I have to fight. I am a quitter.
You quit with Kevin, but anyway, yeah.
that
so would I apparently.
Yeah. I feel very conflicted when I start things. Am I wasting my time? Yada. I'm constantly struggling with fighting the urge to quit things because I have such a low self-confidence. So I have to always play this game. This is way too deep. So I have to play this game with myself where it's like, do I really want to quit, or am I just being defeatist right now? Like, what is that line when you're really done with something? And the truth of the matter is, you just know when you're done with something. Like you're lying to yourself. You will know. And I left one day. Actually, it was actually the best day I'd had in like a year at the gym. I think I
rolling.
Everybody, dude. Like I felt like a monster.
And you were like, I did it.
I sat down in my car and I felt nothing. And I said, that's it. That's a wrap. It's over. I was like, I'm not coming back. And I also will say this. I think that there's no jiu-jitsu people probably watch this. I think jiu-jitsu has a really bad problem right now in the culture. I think what jiu-jitsu
is changing a lot right now.
Yeah. So what everyone used to say is a jiu-jitsu. Well, I'm so sorry for everyone that wanted to hear books. I promise we'll stop soon.
We'll get back to it.
Jiu-jitsu used to be about being humble and, it's going to make you a better character and this and that. And that is simply not the case. And it's not true. And the more popular it has gotten, just like anything, the more types of people who have come in. And unfortunately, jiu-jitsu absolutely is not a humbling sport anymore. It will humble you, but it will also enable you if you are someone who is toxic or, has an ego. All of those things still apply. And it became very evident that jiu-jitsu was like shifting for me. Marcelo Garcia is the greatest jiu-jitsu player of all time, in my opinion. However, nobody wants to be Marcelo Garcia anymore. Everybody wants to be Gordon Ryan, a guy who goes around and kicks homeless people and makes fun of them. And, it's constantly making people feel worse about themselves no matter where they are in their lives. And unfortunately, I started seeing that a lot in my gyms, dude. I'm
seeing a lot of the same kind of people. The no-gi is picking up, and everyone wants to be that kind of guy. And it's a little bit. The traditional aspect of the martial art is sort of dissolving, which is, you can find it. Don't get me wrong, it's there, but
there are good people.
Some of the best people I've ever met. And so it didn't even shock me that you did jiu-jitsu, because like it's usually the most articulate, smart, kind, gentle people that can just like destroy you in the gym. In the competitive arena, in the spotlight, the culture's changing. And what I find interesting before we get back to the books is, in jiu-jitsu, for those people that don't know, it's rare that you come out of a class or an open mat, rolling competition, whatever, feeling neutral. You either feel like you want to kill yourself. You're like, how did today happen? Or you come out being like, that was the best. I killed it. You never come out being like, that was all right. Rarely. It's up and down, up and down. And that's why I enjoy it, because of that challenge and that tempo, right? It's never the same. If you start coming out, walking back to your car feeling like, all right, I'm just going to go back to my day now, and like, maybe I'll come back next week, like just feeling neutral about it, something's wrong.
That's
something's
exactly
wrong.
What happened to me. I remember
there's nothing wrong with that. And you might pick up again. Who knows? But for now, it's cool.
God bless Kelsey, because she said, not everything's black and white, dude. She's like, you can just not be doing it right now. You don't have to, because I was like, I'm going to quit. I'll get rid of my gi.
I'm all or nothing too. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Get rid. Exactly. Yeah. Hang on to a gi. Hang on to the belt. You never know. Right.
I mean,
and when we meet up in Seattle, we'll just start roll.
You would.
I don't think so.
You're 250 pounds and you're good. Like if you were 250 pounds and not good, I would still be like,
true.
Like, God,
they do say every 50 pounds adds a belt. So I've got about 6 belts on you probably. So
size matters quite a bit. I mean, and when you add skill with size, it's a wrap, dude.
Oh, absolutely. I remember my first day, I got tapped out by like 140-pound small Asian girl that turned out to be a cop. Made me feel a little bit better. I was like, I have to learn this. Anyway, thanks, John. I appreciate that, man.
That is the beauty of it, though.
Totally.
Is that there is a thing, you come in on day one. I mean, when I came into jiu-jitsu, man, I was still kind of big from wrestling. I was like jacked up. And I remember this girl, she's probably about 135 pounds. She's a purple belt, and she strangled me. And in that moment, if she had decided to end my life, she could have. And I've never felt so weak and vulnerable in my entire life. And also, it didn't really have much to do with her being 135 pounds or even a girl. But whenever you get beat in grappling, you feel like you're drowning. That's the only way.
You can't do anything.
You cannot do anything, and you're so tired. So I don't know, man. Like it's
funny because especially if you get a little bit more advanced, you can lose a bar fight to anyone and go, that was a lucky punch, man. Right? You
Yeah.
lose in jujitsu after a 5-minute roll and you're like, I made so many mistakes. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, I'm just not as good. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those, you either win or you lose. There's no like, whoops. I mean, you can get yourself into a position, but
You can
man,
get caught.
it's crazy.
You can get caught in the heel
sure.
hook.
Yeah.
I also did have a white belt rip a heel hook on me, and I was
you said that.
Tore my knee, and I was just like, dude, I hate this. Like, I hate this shit, dude. Because like
So
I literally let him, and I go, oh yeah, I said this is a heel hook, and he was like, oh, sick, and he's like, bro,
do you know how literally every class I was having white belts just literally like Imanari roll into me and like try and heel hook me, and it's just like, dude, why don't you start with like something else, like learn your
I was
grips,
doing
bro.
Purple belt because I was bored. It's
learn
like,
your grips, learn side control, like I don't know. Anyway, what are you? I should have started with this, Jimmy. But what are you reading right now?
I'm reading The Searcher by Tana French, Irish author who wrote about a Chicago PD officer moving to the west side of Ireland to retire and finding himself involved in a local small Ireland town mystery that is permeating and being ignored by a little boy who kind of like eggs his house until he decides to help him. It's kind of funny. So I'm almost done with it. I would say for those who are looking for a great mystery, it's not really a procedural like crime novel. It just poses as one. It's a literary fiction about a person going into a new place and discovering how things are done. And if you're someone who likes like the transport character, that means that like they're coming into a new area of a totally different dynamic, but still carrying their trauma from their past. Beautiful book. If you're looking for the greatest mystery of all time, it's okay. I would say a lot of it's kind of run of the mill, maybe a little bit cliche, but Tana French's writing is very digestible, very readable. I really, really liked it. So I got to say, I think that Tana French is a great writer. I don't know if it's the greatest mystery novel of all time, but I'm very high on it, especially after just being in Ireland and how much I adored the culture there and the vibes and the stress, the low amounts of stress that I experienced while I was there. So I'm pretty big on that. And then today I'm going to start Heroes Die by Matt Woodling.
I want to read that one.
Literally probably the second or third book I was recommended on BookTube back in like 2020 when I started.
Yeah.
And I just keep putting it up, but I am finally reading it. I'm starting it this weekend. I think I'm going to do a vlog for it because a lot of people have been waiting for me to read this. And then I'm also reading the Stormlight chapter, the preview chapters, and I got to get caught up today because I got an episode of Lost in
cool.
later. So
sweet.
I got a lot going on, and I'm going to finish The Searcher today, and then I'll start Heroes Die. So I'm really trying to do one book at a time. And if a book loses me, I'm just DNFing. Like,
yeah,
easy.
I've given myself more leniency to DNF these days, and I do it earlier, But I find I do have to bounce between books, Otherwise, I get a little bit not burnt out, but I definitely need to bounce between books. So I'm right now I'm reading like Stormlight, and I'm reading some other book, and they complement each other pretty well. But I can't, especially for big books, I can't just sit there and read one book start to finish until I'm done. Sometimes I just pick up a book and I'm just in the mood for something different, and I only have two going at the same time, rarely more, but sometimes an audiobook, one other book, whatever. But
yeah, for me, the big challenge will be when I'm starting Tad Williams' third book, Into the Narrow Dark, for The Last King of Ostenard. Big boy, right? Big boy. I'm going to have to try to see if I can read just one book at a time. But, the idea is if you're not splitting your time with another book, and you're still reading the same amount of time, like you'll get through it faster, which is great.
That is true. I find I read more when I bounce between. I just keep up the pace more instead of,
I mean, I've been doing the bounce back and forth for a year and a half to 2 years. Sometimes you just need to change things up.
100%.
Sometimes you're playing guard. Sometimes you want to smash. It's kind of like that. You got to switch things up. So we're going to try this laser focus on one book at a time thing till the end of the year. And for me, I'm trying to kind of weed out a lot of like the mid to subpar books for me. Not meaning that they're objectively bad, but like for me, just like I don't want to be spending my time with like 3 or 4 mid books at once, because this is what was happening to me. I would have 3 books going at once, and I didn't love any of them.
I'm falling into that too. Yep.
And then it starts, instead of reading 50 pages in each book a day, I'm now reading 10 pages of the book a day, and then looking over at this book I actually want to be reading. You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%. I know what you mean. Oh yeah.
So
how many hours? We got this question before from Ted, I think, but how many hours a day do you spend reading?
At least an hour a day. But
at least an hour.
I always try to go for like 2. But I would
Yep.
say somewhere between an hour to 2 hours a day, roughly.
Yeah, same.
And
I
that's
do it
a
like an
mix.
hour in the morning, and then I fit some in throughout the
Yeah.
day for sure.
I listen to 20 minutes
What?
of the audiobook if I have it while I stretch. I stretch every day for 20 to 30 minutes. So
Nice.
I use that time as audiobook time. And then
Nice.
if I'm out on the golf course by myself, I'll also listen to audiobooks. If I'm at the range just hitting some balls,
Mhm.
like I'll listen then. But a lot of it's with my eyeballs, the majority
Nice.
of it now. Yeah.
I've been at the range a lot lately, but it's the gun range because I'm hunting soon. So
Are you
I'm dialing it in.
Are you hunting people?
No, because that's frowned up. I guess it's illegal, but it's also severely frowned upon out in these parts. But I know in America you guys do things a little bit different. But
Yeah, we do things a little differently around here, Tio. Okay.
yeah, no, I'm going hunting for elk. And did you see what just happened? I said hunting. Like that's how people say it now, right? I'm one of you. Anyway,
one of you. Wait, what's that? What we mean you?
I don't know. Do you hunt? Do you fish? Do you do anything else?
No.
Do you? Okay.
Theo, I am a documentary away from being a vegan. Okay. I am always one bad picture from PETA away from being a vegetarian. I cannot hunt. Absolutely not.
Fair.
If I had a gun, I'd shoot myself, not an animal.
You could choke out a deer and eat it in the wilderness if you had to, but yeah.
Oh, have you ever seen someone have to subdue a rabid dog with the rear naked? You can actually choke a dog out.
Can you really? I'm sure you probably could.
Yeah, I watched this video of this dog attack, like a dog got out or something, and it was attacking this kid, and this dude jumped on the back and rear naked choked the dog and put it to sleep. I mean, didn't kill it, just like put it unconscious. And I was like, wow, that works. That's crazy.
I actually have seen that before. I've seen people try and jump on the back of a dog, pull it off, right? Pull the teeth out. Like, I feel like slipping your hand around and actually choking it might be the way to go, to be honest. I don't know.
I mean, I think a rear naked choke is the best solution in almost every scenario, as long as they're on the ground and you're not hanging off their back.
Yeah.
Everyone can be choked.
Now that we've talked about choking dogs, what is that Cosmo podcast again? Let's just quickly segue. People
Lost in Roshar. You can find it on any podcast platform, or you could also check it out on Lost in Discovery here on YouTube. Lost in Discovery is ran by Christian. He has a backlog, of Stormlight Archive content that is, in my opinion, the best Stormlight Archive content.
Can you pitch Heroes Die? Because I know, literally, I know that it's a really good book, and the cover's whack. Oh, you don't know anything about it?
So here's the only thing I know about it. I know a lot of people just read book 1. Book 2 is one of those like really out there books, but book 1, I think someone said it's like an alternate reality. Like this guy goes on like a game show or so. He's like a reality host in a fantasy world, but then he goes back to. I honestly don't know. I just know that it's supposed to be absolutely batshit crazy, and I'm pretty excited to read it. So
sorry, I'm just looking at a couple comments here. Paint my walls red nuts.
That was one of my favorite moments in Chatting with Nuts history. Watching everyone be disgusted with me in the moment. It was beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dragon Bone Chair. Yeah, Dragon Bone Chair. Awesome. You know, I have something that I'm embarrassed to share with you. Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead. Why not? Okay. No one's watching, right? It's only
this isn't live and on the internet forever. I loved Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I read the first 2 books. I read the first half of 2 Green Angel Tower, and I haven't picked it up in like a year because shit just got busy and just what. Yeah. And I've never been so mad at myself as I am right now, because look, this is not a series you can just pick back up and quickly reread. Okay. Like, what do I do? Like, do I just do a recap? What do I do?
Listen, you go to the front of 2 Green Angel Tower, read what came before, and then jump back into where you were. And I would suggest doing it around Christmas time, because Tad Williams writes amazing fantasy that is
winter stuff.
Yeah, it's so gritty, it's real, it's raw, but it's also kind of cozy in a weird way.
Yeah.
At times.
Yes, it is.
Bennebeck and Simon next to a campfire and shit. You know, I love that. And I think that reading it in December, if you're into the Christmas spirit or mood or whatever, really does help.
Maybe I'll do that. I'll pick back up. I think
the sequels are really good, dude.
Your Austin Art video that you did a while back now was one of my favorite videos, where you talk about like the world and everything and the map. Like, that was a pretty good video.
For me at the time, that was like, whoa,
Epic.
dude, yeah. And now I go back and watch it. I don't really like it when I rewatch it, but I leave it up because a lot of people do like it. And
Yeah,
you know
it helps
what?
a lot of people for sure.
That was a video made out of pure passion. I didn't think I was the smartest person or getting it all right, but I was just infected with this series. And
That came across. I should say that came across. And you know what's cool about some of your videos too? Like when you do stuff like that is they never seem like prescribed. They never seem like, hey, here's what I want to tell you. And like, here's why I think you'll like this, or here's what you should take. Like, it's just you sharing. And you said that about your wrap ups and your whatever. It's always just you sharing. And I like that,
I think
you always have the right vibe, I think.
Well, that makes me. Sometimes the vibes can be a little weird. I think last night's Chat with Nuts was pretty chaotic. It was fun, but I do try to relay a certain amount of enthusiasm or distaste, I guess, for things I don't like. A lot of this comes from the fact that I grew up very religious in a Pentecostal environment and was sent on missions trips and stuff. So I think evangelizing is just like baked into my DNA. And I'm no longer religious. I don't claim any religion. I'm whatever.
Sure.
I don't have a label.
Agnostic, whatever.
Yeah,
just whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't follow any organized religion, or to really care about it. But just being able to share the good news, brother. I want to come to your doorstep and share the good news of Memory Stone and Thorn.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that possibly has something to do with it, and just I don't know, being able to open up a conversation and then recommend something within the first 5 minutes. It's like contagious. It's compulsive to me.
You getting the special editions, the broken binding ones? Yeah, those are hot.
They're nice.
Yeah, they're nice. Live ship traders. Okay. I wish you wouldn't have asked me this. I'm halfway through the last book. Surprise, surprise. Here's the deal. Hopefully we can be friends after this. I enjoy Robin Hobb. I actually really like the Fireside trilogy. I liked Assassin's Quest more than a lot of people did. Royal Assassin was a banger. Absolutely. I love that trilogy for sure. Live ship, I enjoyed it. Her writing is amazing. I like the flip in this one, like the shift in tone and characters and the intimacy with like the family and whatever, and how we're in this one area. Like I do like it. They're very slow, and that's deliberate and that's enjoyable. I just found as of late, I was less in the mood for that. And maybe it had partly to do with my starting to read more, coming back to book 2, blah, 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 and building a little momentum in reading. And it just wasn't like matching my pace or my interest. So I'm enjoying it. I'm just picking at it. And to be honest, I keep picking up other things instead of finishing off Ship of Destiny. And I'm not positive why. I don't know why. But I will finish it. I have the audiobook actually queued up, which I might just finish it in audio. Even though the audiobooks are not great for live ship.
A little rough.
They're pretty bad. But yeah, I'll finish it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously am a huge fan of Robin Hobb, but this is not something I'm not used to hearing. When I told you that a lot of my patron Discord hates things I love, I would say, man, like 70% of my Discord hates Robin Hobb. It's just the people who love Robin Hobb are like really love Robin Hobb. Yeah, probably because of a lot of the connection to the close POVs. But yeah, I don't think anything you said is wrong. They are very methodical. They're very slow books, and they're not for everybody. And neither is any other book in the world.
True.
Yeah, see, I don't find that to be a hot take just because I'm surrounded by people who don't really like Hobb that much. So for me, I'm almost joyous when I find someone who does like Ship of Destiny or whatever it is. But
I just kept hearing that, and Vera, they're not great. They're doable. You can, if you have to, but like they're not great. I keep hearing from everyone that live ship is like some of the best. And I to be honest, I just wanted to read through live ship traders. And again, I'm enjoying it enough, of course. Otherwise I would have just stopped, but I guess I kind of did. But I'll pick it back up. But I wanted to get through this one to get back to the fit stuff, the Fits in the Fool stuff, the Tawny Man, like all that stuff I hear. I can't wait. So I'll get through this. What I'm afraid of is the quicker I finish Ship of Destiny, the quicker I got to get into the Rainwild stuff to get past that. And,
hey, you might like Rainwilds though. I mean,
maybe.
That is another one that the cliche was, oh, everyone hates them. But I know plenty of people that really like them. And from her world building perspective, that is probably the most interesting it ever gets. There's a lot of really neat lore in there. I think the final book is really good. There's also a character arc in there with an antagonist that is pretty amazing, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it's just more of a mixed bag. Like Robin
Someone
Hobb,
that I would have met in the Farseer trilogy already, or
no,
live
this is
ship?
a completely
New.
original storyline. Yeah.
Okay.
And that I think is pretty good. And I would say is just up there with her other top tier stuff. So Hobb is one of those writers that I really love. And I love the way she does things. However, I have complaints as well. I think that there's some pacing that I think is a little bit wonky, the repetitive nature of some of the things. I think she also leans a little bit too much, especially in live ship, on letting the reader know what's going on and then watching the other characters figure it out while you already know, which is a perfectly fine way of telling a story, by the way.
Some people
But
get annoyed by that, but yeah.
yes, but it can definitely be a little bit over the top. Like it can get a little bit tired. Kev is upset because Kev doesn't like Hobb. Like he thinks she's just okay. And then when someone pushes back, Kev gets very annoyed. So he's being over the top.
Gotcha.
At this very moment. I find, never mind, I'm not even going to get into it. I won't get into it. But Hobby has ups and downs for me. Realm of the Earlings is not like a Malazan to me, where like Malazan to me was just like across the board. I never once felt checked out of the series. I don't necessarily say, I wouldn't say I was ever checked out of Realm of the Earlings, but there were times where I was waiting for the next book. And there were times where I wasn't, you know what I mean? Super into what was going on. So I still love it though, overall.
Yeah. I'll get back to it. We'll see. This is going to be probably like, I've been looking forward to spooky season, and I don't, October. I like Halloween. I like fall. I like October. I like to fit in a lot of horror. This is probably one of the first times where I'm just going to kind of roll through with most of my fantasy. Again, Stormlight's going to be the priority because I've taken way too long to get to that, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm just going to roll through and fit in some horror and stuff, but it's not going to be a spooky season. It's not going to be a horror first month like it normally might be, just because I like those vibes. Like you said, around December, Christmas, winter, cozy, but I do like that. I do like kind of matching that way.
Yeah.
Do you do a spooky kind of thing? Do you get in a specific mood in fall and horror?
Yeah, I'm basic. I'm basic. I'll get a pumpkin spice latte and read a Stephen Graham Jones novel. I don't mind. I think there's like no harm in that stuff. I think
totally.
It's fun.
I think I agree.
Why not do it? We have to make sense of the randomness that life is. So giving things arbitrary value or purpose is part of the reason why I'm still around, I think. So for me, I will be reading some spooky stuff. I was planning on reading, I think I was actually maybe supposed to do it this month, but in October, I'll probably read The Shining by Stephen King. It's one I wanted to read. And I would also love to read Dr. Sleep in November. And then I think I was going to do like Revival or Doomickey or something.
I just read Revival not that long ago. Doomickey, I haven't heard good things. Revival was good. The ending was
I heard
good.
Revival is really good. And I've had it personally recommended to me. Like, this is a King book that you specifically will like. So I'm kind of excited for it. But to be honest, I read You Like It Darker and I loved it this year, the short story collection that he released.
I haven't tried it yet. I bought it.
I think it's really good. I really, really like it. I'm not a Stephen King expert though, so I would listen to other people other than me. But I just had a really good time with it. However, I'm not really feeling the King right now. Like it's September, thankfully, but in October, if I come around and I don't feel like reading King, I'm not going to. Like, I'm not going to force it. Those books will always be there. But The Shining is one that's been on my list forever, and I actually really want to read Dr. Sleep because I want to watch the movie.
The movie's very good.
Yeah, this is an example where actually I want to read the book so I can unlock the movie kind of deal.
So
not that the book will be bad.
Revival, brilliant. Revival's good. Doomickey, John wants some company. Doomickey, Heidi's like, either way you go, it's going to be a good time. I haven't read Dr. Sleep, but I watched the movie and I thought the movie was great, to be honest.
It's what's the director's name? I'm forgetting his name. Shoot, not McFarlane.
I'm not good with direct remembering. Yeah.
He's the guy that did
Kevin probably knows.
He's the guy that did the Netflix movies like Haunting a Hill House and such.
Is it Flanagan?
Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan?
Sure. I better make sure that I'm
I think it was too, because that's probably why it was good.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain it was Flanagan, so I would like to see that. Also, I've actually never watched The Shining from beginning to end. I've seen all the scenes, because it's impossible not to see it. But I would also love to read it because I know that King is not a huge fan of the novel and how they did it. Or I'm sorry,
the movie. Yep. Watch the movie. I would read it and then watch the movie because I think they're both. It's one of those situations, right? like I look to Jurassic Park a lot for that, because it's just like they're both amazing, but they're both totally kind of, well, not totally different, but they take different turns, and they're both good in their own right, but they don't really follow each other. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it's one of the most revered movies of all time. So for King to have problems with, it's kind of interesting, I think. So I would like to do that. For some reason though, I just have this feeling about Doctor Sleep. Like Kev's saying, it's underrated.
Really?
I just have a feeling I'm going to like it, and I have no reason to believe that. It's just an intuition that I have that I'm going to love Doctor Sleep.
Go with your gut. Yeah, the movie's awesome. I wonder, what should you do? Should you read them? Should you read The Shining and then watch Doctor Sleep? Should you watch, like, what do you do? There's a lot to do.
That's a tough question. My only reason why I'm a little bit apprehensive to like scheduling all these King reads is because I'm also going to be reading the 4th book in Ostenard, which is going to be 1,200 pages. Stormlight 5 in December. I'll have the first part of it done because I'm reading the preview chapters, but still another humongous book. And then I'm also going to be reading the Rune Lords by David Farland, book 1 in his series, which I'm very, very excited about. By the way, I think it's David Farland. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I can Google it. Yeah, David Farland, who is one of Sanderson's idols. Back yeah,
cool.
I think there's 6 or 7 books, but people say, there's actually more than that. But some people say to read only Arc 1 because like it kind of falls off a cliff, and I don't think it's finished either. But yeah, Rune Lords is like silently maybe the thing I'm most excited about for the rest of the year. I mean, I'm most excited for Tad's last book and The Last King of Ostenar. I'm more excited for that than Stormlight 5 actually, but
sure.
Yeah, Rune Lords is going to be cool. I think I'm doing it in November, Belltube. I know Kev knows because he was going to read it with me. So yeah, it's November. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned Stephen Graham Jones. I haven't tried him yet. He's The Only Good Indians and blah, blah, blah. Where would you recommend I start? Would you recommend him for me? And where would I start?
Night of Mannequins, I think, is going to be a really good way to start because it's a novella. I think it's like 120 pages and it's very psychological.
That's perfect. Okay, this is perfect. Thank you.
And I got to tell you,
something small.
Go into it with absolutely zero expectations of the title.
Okay.
I liked the Only Good Indians. I know Kevin didn't like it. Actually, Stephen Graham Jones is just a polarizing author anyways, because he's very stylized and he's very strange. But I think Night of Mannequins is like one of the more remarkable books I've read in the last like 5 years. Like it honestly loved that book. I read it with Murphy and then we immediately reread it. And then I had Kelsey read it and we talked about it. I probably talked about that book offline for like 5 to 6 hours total.
Wow.
For a 100-something page book and how stylized it was, I thought it was absolutely killer. I love it.
I'm going to check that out. I'm going to because again, Stormlight's taking up most of the month. I'm fitting in a buddy read for the Reformatory, which is kind of a disturbing, spooky novel based in sort of a boys' reform school, and bad things happen. It's in Jim Crow era, 1950s, in I believe Florida, actually.
Oh my.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit heavy. Heavy is a good word. So I'm going to read that, and then I'd look for a small little novella or something, and I'd love to sample Stephen Graham Jones. So that actually is perfect.
It's an unreliable narrator, and it's going to be not what you expect. That's all I think I can really say. But I would love for you to read it and then talk to me about it after. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to love it, but you will have an opinion of it one way or the other for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't read
anything from it being like, I don't know, whatever. Like you'll be like, I need to talk about this because I'm either pissed off or I loved it. Like it's one of the two.
Okay. I like books like that. Maybe not books where you invest like a week reading something and then you go, but like a novella, I love if it can shake it up a little bit. That'd be awesome for sure.
Yeah. I think there's only been 2 books that I've ever reread immediately, one being Blood Meridian and the other being Night of Mannequins. So that shows how special I think it is, like to immediately want to reread.
Blood Meridian is one of those books where you have those analysis videos, those deep dives, those explanation videos, those metaphorical, like what is he talking about? That's a good one. There's a lot of content out there. That's the only book that I read and I couldn't rate on Goodreads. I gave a review, I just didn't rate it. Like it didn't deserve, like I couldn't. I didn't know. I still don't know to this day. Did I enjoy myself?
I think
Do I,
enjoy would be an odd word to use for Blood Meridian. I
you
think
know?
one of the things that it does serve as is like a catapult to other things because it is so entrenched in its inspirations of like Moby Dick and
Yeah.
Paradise Lost by John Milton. Like there's so many things that McCarthy's pulling strings at that like once you read it and read it again and again and again, and you hear people talking about it, you start to be able to pull things out of it.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to go read these authors that inspired this like very odd, very American like novel. I think there's a large amount of uncomfortability in reading it because of just how violent it is and over the top. But like that isn't fake. Like those terrible deeds did happen and maybe worse as well. And it's just having to confront a history of a country that was built on the backs of many immoral things and violence. And like, that's something we have to wrestle with as like a national identity. I think Blood Meridian is kind of highlighting that in some ways, but also a very big commentary just on man and war as a machine and how it will probably, it's a very pessimistic view that it will never stop.
True. And that book, it stays with you. For sure. I think about that book and I think about the judge. Like I think about a lot of those scenes a lot. It just kind of
whenever he's out
lives rent free.
And he's dude, he's creepy, man.
It's war never changes. That's true. Yeah. Blood Meridian, one of those books, respect. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I respected it. I saw the genius behind it. And it just is a book and it does things. And that's kind of all I could say, you know?
Yeah. It's funny. I actually think Suttree is his more difficult book. Like I found Suttree.
What is it called?
Suttree. It's like a semi-autobiographical book of some of his life but also mixed with fiction. And it just follows this guy that's living on the river down in Tennessee that was like really smart. I can't remember his exact job, but he was like college educated, making good money, and just abandons his entire life and goes and lives on the river with like vagabonds and tons of outcasts from society. And it is a fascinating read of like someone just completely walking away from the responsibilities. And it's not like the wish fulfillment that you would think like, oh, I got a cabin out in the woods. Like it's all good. There's a lot of heavy stuff built into it, but there's times where that book, I still don't know what a lot of it was saying, or like I actually was confused by what was going on. So I actually thought it was a little bit more confusing, the Blood Meridian, more challenging, but it's my favorite. It's probably my favorite McCarthy book, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really tough read. Like it's really hard, but it affected me deeply.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, look, we're just under 2 hours. I'm getting hungry. I know you have a big day planned. So why don't we call it? Is there anything else you want to say? I just want to thank everybody for hanging out. It was awesome to do this on a Saturday morning. Thanks for hanging out with us. Is there anything you want to, if you haven't checked out Jim, by the way, I want to introduce Jimmy. If you don't know, he has a channel. He'll be linked eventually in the description, but go find Jimmy Nuts, the Fantasy Network, one of the best booktube channels out there. And do me a favor, go show some love if you haven't. But do you want to say anything, Jimmy, before we get on with the rest of our lives? We'll do this again, by the way. I appreciate it. I had a really good time with you.
Literally anytime you want to do it, man. I'm always down.
Thanks, man. Cool.
We'll have to get you on Chatting with Nuts here
100%.
soon. Don't do jujitsu. It's bad for your body. Don't listen to people.
Bad for your knees.
It's also not nearly the exercise people make it out to be, because once you're good, you don't have to try as hard anymore. And then
it's a specific kind of cardio that you can't train unless you do it, but then you do it and you're kind of like, all right, it's fine. Right.
Yeah. And then once you're good, you don't move as much, so you don't burn as many calories. So that's why you get overweight brown belts.
I just spider guard everybody and I just slow them right down. Yeah.
Dude, I did lasso guard. That was my stall.
Yeah, lasso's my jam. Lasso's my jam. 100%.
I love lasso. Folks, just read deeply and widely and love what you read or hate. Whatever you do it with your full heart. And just remember to be nice to one another, because this
is like a one for the road. I love it. It's good.
Yeah, there's human beings behind every book opinion, and you don't know what they're going through. So just be kind, and be gracious, because one day you're going to require that grace as well. We all do eventually. So
that's a very good point. Just remember, we're all here to enjoy things. We all want each other to enjoy things. We're all here for the same reasons. So remember that.
Anyway, it ain't that deep.
Ain't that deep. Ain't that important. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you soon, hopefully, on the next video, guys.